It's strange, isn't it? How we humans are so drawn to the familiar, even when that familiarity wounds us. There's something inside us that clings to old patterns, repeating them, reenacting them, simply because they feel like home. And home, no matter how fractured, still holds a strange kind of comfort. Often, we don't even realize that the pain we return to is a pain we've known before. It doesn't always start with conscious thought. It's something older, deeper, living under the surface of words. When someone causes us hurt, but also offers flickers of warmth or love, we confuse that contradiction with depth. We tell ourselves, this is complicated, as if complexity somehow justifies our suffering. But usually what we're really facing is a clash between our longing for love and the echo of old wounds. That echo, it's powerful. It pulls at us because it feels familiar, like something we've already lived. The cold silences, the emotional distance, the back-and-forth affection, they reach back to an earlier time. Maybe a parent who couldn't love us the way we needed, or a caregiver who praised us one moment and shamed us the next. These early bonds shape what we come to expect from love. So later in life, when we meet someone who stirs up those same feelings, confusion, anxiety, longing, rejection, it feels strangely right, like home. We don't always realize that we're not just reacting to the person in front of us. We're responding to something old inside ourselves. We mistake that echo for connection, and so we cling. Not because we're weak, not because we crave suffering, but because the soul is searching for resolution. It wants to heal the wound. By replaying it, hoping this time the ending will change. The problem is, most of us don't even realize we're doing this. We call it fate or chemistry. We say things like, I've never felt this way before, or they complete me. But what we often really mean is, they make me feel the way I once felt when love and pain were tangled together. And we confuse that entanglement for meaning. People often ask, why don't we just walk away from those who hurt us? The answer is, because they feel like home. The suffering isn't just tolerable, it's familiar. It fits the old script we've been handed. And stepping outside that script requires an inner revolution. It demands that we start questioning the patterns we've mistaken for truth, that we ask why we seek validation from those least able to give it, and why we keep calling that validation love. Sometimes we stay not to win over the other person, but to prove something to ourselves. We want to earn their affection because if we do, maybe we'll finally silence that voice inside that says we're not enough. We think, if I can just get them to love me, then maybe I'll finally be okay. But that's an illusion because the love we need isn't coming from outside. It's coming from healing the original wound inside. And that healing doesn't happen by reliving the same pain. It happens when we recognize it, face it, and choose differently. Here's something vital to understand. Emotional familiarity is not the same as emotional safety. Just because someone feels like home doesn't mean they are home. Real love doesn't leave us anxious, small, or invisible. It doesn't make us question our worth. It doesn't show up only sometimes, keeping us hooked on the highs just so we can survive the lows. But to know the difference, we must first be willing to see the pattern, and seeing it isn't enough. We have to be brave enough to break it. Breaking it means grieving, not just the person, but the story we've been telling ourselves. The story that this pain was love. That if we just tried harder, stayed longer, loved better, we'd finally be chosen. That story runs deep. It's tied to memory, identity, even survival. But it's a story that no longer serves us. Rewriting it is painful, yes, but necessary. So if you find yourself clinging to someone who hurts you, ask, what am I really holding on to? Is it the person or the pattern? Is it love or is it familiarity disguised as love? These aren't easy questions, but they are the right ones, and they lead us slowly but surely out of the cycle and toward something gentler, freer, more real. There's a quiet irony in human nature we rarely talk about. We're often more afraid of being alone than we are of being hurt. That fear, subtle and persistent, weaves through so many of our decisions. It's not just about wanting company or love. It's the terror of facing emptiness. That deep silence when no one is there to distract us from ourselves. Even when someone wounds us repeatedly, we cling, not because they make us feel safe, but because the alternative feels unbearable. Loneliness, you see, is more than just being without someone. It's a confrontation with ourselves. It's facing all the parts we try to avoid when we're caught up in someone else's chaos. There's a strange kind of comfort in the emotional roller coaster of a painful relationship. It gives us something to do, something to fight for, something to chase. But take all that away, and we're left with stillness. And in that stillness, all the unanswered questions rise to the surface. Who am I if I'm not the one trying to save this relationship? What's left of me when no one else is defining my worth? These aren't easy questions. That's why we often choose the known pain over the unknown silence. We stay, we compromise, we rationalize. We say things like, maybe it'll get better, or they're just going through something. But underneath all the justifications is the quiet, vulnerable truth. I don't want to be alone. That truth isn't shameful. It's deeply human. But if we don't acknowledge it, it silently shapes our choices. Many people will tolerate being diminished, dismissed, or disrespected just to avoid the ache of solitude. We've been taught to believe that being in any relationship, even in an unhealthy one, is better than being alone. Society rarely celebrates solitude. From childhood, we're told stories where the happy ending only arrives when someone finds a partner, as if wholeness is something granted by another. This conditioning runs deep, and when it meets our inner fears of being forgotten, of being unlovable, of disappearing, it creates a powerful trap. We hold on to people not for who they are, but for what they represent: connection, stability, identity. Even if they bring pain, we tell ourselves, at least I'm not alone in this pain. We confuse proximity with intimacy, attention with affection, endurance with love. But the real work begins when we ask, why am I so afraid to be alone? What does solitude actually mean to me? Often it feels like failure, the failed relationship, the dream that didn't last, the idea that maybe we're just too hard to love. But solitude is not the enemy, it's the mirror. It reflects back everything we haven't yet healed, and that's why it frightens us. In those quiet moments without distraction, we meet the parts of ourselves we've abandoned while chasing someone else's love, our hurt, our hopes, our truth. Solitude is the space where we finally come home, to ourselves. Yet we resist it because returning to the self takes courage, the courage to see what we've been avoiding, the wounds we carry, the beliefs we inherited, the roles we've clung to. Here's the truth. Until we face solitude, we will always be at the mercy of relationships that promise to fill it. We will keep grasping for others to complete us, instead of building a relationship with ourselves that makes us whole. Only when we stop fearing our own company can we begin to choose partners from a place of strength, not survival. Then love becomes a choice, not a necessity, a gift, not a crutch. When we cling to those who hurt us, it's often because they distract us from a deeper ache, the ache of feeling empty, forgotten, invisible. But that emptiness isn't something to run from, it's something to understand. Because when we understand it, we can transform it. And when we transform it, we no longer need to seek validation through pain. So maybe the real question isn't, why do I keep holding on to them? Maybe it's, what do I fear I'll face when they're gone? The answer to that question holds the key, not just to letting go, but to finally coming home to who we truly are. There's something especially hard about walking away from a relationship you've poured so much of yourself into, even when it's hurting you. even when it's clearly not working. You tell yourself, but I've already come this far. You look back at all the memories, the sacrifices, the emotional energy you've invested, and you think, it can't. All have been for nothing. That quiet ache, the insistence that everything you've given must count for something, keeps you tied to someone long after the relationship has stopped serving you. It's like being stuck in a loop. The more you've given, the harder it is to let go. Because letting go feels like admitting it was all wasted. And we hate waste. We hate the idea that we poured our souls into something that didn't last, didn't grow, didn't give back. But that's the trap. We cling, not because it's right, but because we're trying to protect the meaning we've attached to the past. We think, if I stay just a little longer, if I try just a little harder, maybe it will turn around. Maybe then everything I've done will finally matter. But pain doesn't turn into love just because we refuse to let go. Suffering doesn't magically become noble just because we endured it. And yet, we try to make it so. We think endurance proves love, that if we keep sacrificing, swallowing our needs, we'll finally earn the outcome we dream of. It's a kind of emotional bargaining. Look at all I've given. Surely this must matter. Surely they'll change. But love is not a transaction. It's not a contract where effort guarantees reward. Some people won't love us back, no matter how deeply we love them. Some relationships won't evolve, no matter how many chances we give, and that isn't a reflection of our worth. It's a reflection of a truth we're unwilling to face. We hold on because walking away feels like failure. But what if the failure isn't in the leaving? What if the real failure is in refusing to accept the truth, in choosing to keep investing in a story that stopped being honest long ago? This tendency has a name in economics, the sunk cost fallacy. The idea that the more we've invested, time, energy, emotion, the harder it becomes to let go, even when it's not serving us. We're not making choices based on the present. We're being held hostage by the past. That's the danger. When our past investment becomes the only reason we stay, not the reality we're living now, we lose sight of what we deserve. Today, because we're too focused on justifying yesterday, it's like staying in a burning house because we spent years decorating it. The memories on the walls may be beautiful, but if the foundation is crumbling and the air is choking us, at some point we have to choose survival over sentiment. People say, but I know them better than anyone, or they weren't always like this. That may be true, but love isn't proven by how long we've held on. It's proven by how clearly we can see and how honestly we can choose. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit that what once had meaning no longer does, and that doesn't mean we failed. It means we've grown. It means we're finally listening to the part of ourselves that no longer wants to keep bleeding for a bond that only exists in memory. We can honor what we gave without continuing to give more. We can grieve the loss of what might have been without sacrificing the life we still have ahead. And perhaps most importantly, we can learn. Learn that love isn't proven by how much pain we can survive, but by how deeply we're willing to choose truth, even when it hurts. We don't stay because we're blind. We stay because we remember. We remember the good moments, the laughter, the hope. But memory alone can't sustain love. It can't heal what's broken. At some point, we have to stop hoping the past will return and start living fully in the present. Only then can we begin to reclaim our power. What you've given doesn't lose its value just because you choose to walk away. What loses value is you, when you stay where you are, no longer seen. And that's the painful truth many of us carry, often without realizing it. Deep down, we don't always believe we deserve better. We say we want love, respect, kindness, but when those things don't come, sometimes we stay in places where we're given scraps instead of substance, not because we enjoy the pain, but because a part of us has been conditioned to expect it. When you've grown used to pain, when it becomes the emotional climate you're familiar with, you stop questioning it. You normalize it. You call it love, because that's what love has always felt like to you. This isn't a conscious choice. No one wakes up saying, I want to be hurt, but many of us were shaped in environments where love was inconsistent, conditional, or withheld. Maybe you were only praised when you performed, only held when you were quiet, only seen when you didn't take up too much space. Somewhere along the way, you learned to equate love with self-erasure, believing you had to earn affection by pleasing, by needing less, by tolerating whatever was offered. So now, when someone disrespects you, it doesn't feel foreign, it feels familiar. And in a strange, backward way, that familiarity becomes comforting, because when someone treats us poorly, they often just mirror what we already believe about ourselves. Instead of rejecting the mistreatment, we fold ourselves around it. We adjust. We tell ourselves, it's not that bad, I'm strong, I can handle it, and maybe you can. But that's not the point. The point isn't whether you can endure pain. The point is, why do you feel you have to? Why is the part of you that knows you deserve peace being drowned out by the part that thinks suffering is just the price of connection? When you carry low self-worth, love becomes survival. You latch onto anyone who gives you even a fraction of attention because deep down you believe you won't find better. That you can't find better. That belief, whispered by past wounds or shouted by those who never truly saw you, becomes your cage. It convinces you that you're lucky just to be chosen, even by someone who doesn't know how to cherish you, how to recognize toxic emotional cycles. It's easy to get stuck here, because leaving would require believing with your whole heart that you're worthy of something more. And if you've never known love without chaos, cruelty, or condition, that kind of belief can feel impossible. But here's where it starts. Notice the voice in your head, the one that says, this is all I'm going to get. The one that whispers, I'm not lovable enough, not interesting enough, not attractive, smart, or good enough to find something better. That voice isn't truth. It's programming. It's the residue of wounds you were never meant to carry, and you can challenge it. Ask yourself, where did I learn this? Whose voice is that, really? And do I still want it defining me? Because here's a truth most people don't tell you. Healing doesn't begin when someone else loves you. It begins when you stop abandoning yourself. When you show up for the parts of you that were told, in 1,000 small ways, that they didn't matter. When you stop confusing tolerance for strength. When you stop calling the absence of love normal. You are not here to be a mirror for someone else's dysfunction. You are not here to carry the weight of someone who refuses to grow. You are not here to convince someone to treat you well. Your worth doesn't increase with their recognition. It doesn't shrink with their neglect. It is not something to be proven or earned. It simply is, unshakable, even when you forget it. Breaking free, reclaiming your authentic self. If you've been wondering why you keep choosing people who hurt you, ask yourself, what do I believe about myself that makes their behavior feel acceptable? And if the answer stings, that's not a reason to turn away. That's your invitation. That's where the healing begins, not in changing them, but in reclaiming the part of you that forgot you are already enough. The most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves quietly. This is just who I am. This is all I'll ever get. But the truth, no matter how buried, is always waiting to be remembered. You are not hard to love. You are just remembering what love is supposed to feel like. Final message, letting go with courage. Hope is a beautiful thing. It keeps us going through the darkest moments, but hope tied to denial becomes a prison. Often, it's not love that keeps us in relationships that hurt us. It's hope. Hope that they'll change. Hope that the person they used to be will come back. Hope that if we're patient enough, if we love them hard enough, they'll heal. But here's the hard truth. The memory of who someone was is not the same as who they are now. And sometimes the person we're waiting for isn't coming back, not because they never existed, but because that version of them was only ever temporary. We tell ourselves stories to survive the pain. We focus on the rare moments when they're soft or apologetic and ignore the patterns that leave us empty. But staying in something that breaks you isn't love. It's a quiet form of self-abandonment. Yes, there's grief in letting go, not just grief for the person, but for the possibility you were holding on to. But once you move through that grief, there's clarity, there's freedom, there's peace. Not because everything is suddenly okay, but because you've stopped fighting reality. Because you've finally allowed yourself to see what is, not just what could be. The moment you stop hoping they'll change and start hoping you will heal, everything begins to shift. You are worthy of more, sometimes the hardest part of walking. Away isn't the pain they caused, it's the voices around you telling you to stay. Cultural, societal, and familial pressures can make leaving feel like a betrayal. But love should not require you to abandon yourself. Walking away from pain doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you didn't love deeply. It means you finally realize that love doesn't mean losing yourself. You are not here to perform a role at the cost of your soul. You are here to live fully, to love truly, and to be loved in return, not just in words, but in action. If you see yourself in these words, if you're holding on to someone who chips away at your peace, your worth, your joy, I invite you to pause and ask yourself, is this love, or is this a lesson disguised as love? Start by choosing yourself, even quietly, even slowly, because healing begins the moment you stop proving your worth to those who cannot see it. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more videos just like this. Thank you for being here.